How many of you who are African Americans, how many of you know the African city and country from which your ancestors were born? Except my daughter.
Not one hand went up.
Not one hand went up. I asked this question of 500 whites. How many of you know the city and country? I was teaching at a university, a white university, just outside Philadelphia. Every hand went up. They knew not only the country from which they came, not only the city, but the borough from which their ancestors came. First, I want to say something to the ladies in the audience. I want you ladies to understand that African women, and you're the genetic reproductions of our mother, were considered the most beautiful women on the planet for thousands of years by all of the civilized people of the world. The Greeks thought so much of your beauty that they named 2 star constellations after you, Andromeda and Cassiopeia. The two most beautiful star constellations that are in heaven. They say that they have all of the beauty of the setting sun, hair which is alive, and a figure incomparable even today. So I don't want you to think that just because you went through 400 years of horror where they were saying you were ugly, that you believe that because you're the most beautiful people in the world. You are imitated by everybody. So I want to say that before we get on to the discussion.
That's right, that's right.
That's right.
Incredible.
In answer to your question,
Yes.
and you thought that's because I'm old, I forgot the question.
His memory's better than mine.
It's an ongoing process.
Right.
One thing led to the other. And so when I did the video called The Shanghai Princess, I was really testing whether or not drama really worked, because I had found out that drama is the only thing that changes attitude, and attitude changes behavior.
Right.
So in 1990, I created a little video, almost animated, about a little Shanghai princess that was kidnapped by the Wicked Witch of the Mountain, and she was rescued by her lover, who was a medical student at Sankore University. Now, but all during the film, they saw the beautiful homes our mothers and fathers lived in West Africa. They saw the beautiful buildings, the universities. So all of this was subliminal. The impact on children was so great that I said, we've got to do a major motion picture. And that's what we are doing now. We're producing a major motion picture called Whispers of the Medallion. So it's an ongoing process. That's the reason.
That's right. So many people get sidetracked. It seems like you don't get sidetracked, though. You're focused on
well,
work
there's a reason for that. And the reason is called a territorial imperative. I hate to ask this question because it's embarrassing. How many of you who are African Americans, how many of you know the African city and country from which your ancestors were born? Except my daughter.
Not one hand went up.
Not one hand went up. I asked this question of 500 whites. How many of you know the city and country? I was teaching at a university, a white university, just outside Philadelphia. Every hand went up. They knew not only the country from which they came, not only the city, but the borough from which their ancestors came. Now, how come they know and none of you know? Here's the reason. And here's the reason why I am different. The reason is that these South Carolina and North Carolina plantation owners went to Germany to find out how they could control our fathers and mothers on the plantation, because they were getting out of hand. They were burning the houses down. They were killing white folks. They were doing everything negative about being in captivity. They were never slaves. They were prisoners of war, the War of 1591. So what happened was they sought the advice of an expert in Songhai history. Now, his name was Johann Blumenbach, and he was the head of the Department of History at the University of Göttingen in Germany. And how many of you know this? I know you was taught this in college and everything, all you college folks. Well, when they sought his advice,
Right.
they said, do they know that they're the Songhai people? So the plantation owners who traveled over there to seek his advice said, well, of course they know that they come from the great Songhai Empire. Well, that's your problem. You can't let them know that they came from greatness, from grandeur, from beauty, from sophistication. You'll never be able to control them. So the plantation owner said, well, how can we prevent it? I mean, the mothers and the fathers would tell the children, say, you came from Timbuktu and you came from the city of Jané, and that's where we were born. And then the Europeans came over and invaded us in 1591 and marched us to the seas, to the waiting ship. Said, man, you can't allow them to teach that to their children. They said, well, how you want to stop it? Here's how you do it. Here's why you don't know where you're from. Blumenbach said, what you do, as soon as a boatload arrives, take the babies out the mama's arms. Send the parents to a distant plantation and work them to death and raise the children to believe that they came from a jungle. They won't know the difference.
That's right.
How would they know?
That's right.
Their parents are gone. Now, here's the difference between me and you. When they captured my grandmother, I'm not going through, you heard the beginning of the story. My grandfather was a lawyer and a sculptor in Benin City, Nigeria. And the English kept on coming over stealing his sculpture.
Wow.
Some of his sculpture ended up at the art museum in West Philadelphia, where they came to show it off because it was world-class sculpture.
So have you been able to see this sculpture?
Oh, sure.
Wow.
Yeah, we've got some in the book. But
Incredible.
anyhow, what happened was his wife hassled him and said, don't fight the English when they come over. Just let them have the sculpture. I'm pregnant. And they'll kill you. Then I'll be a widow. And they'll put me on board ship and take me over there where they're taking all the rest of those prisoners of war. But my grandfather, whose name was Mwale, said, I'm fighting them. I'm not going to let them steal my sculpture anymore. And he gathered some of his fellow sculptors, and they fought the English when they came over to steal. They always stealing something. And they killed him, killed my grandfather, and put his wife, his pregnant wife, my great-great-great-grandmother on board the ship. And the ship was named Jesus, by the way. That's deep. And on the way over, the baby was born.
Wow.
All right? Name of Diane. She named Diane. Now, it was bound for South Carolina. How many of your ancestors came from South Carolina? Raise your hand.
Oh, boy.
A whole bunch of folks. They were bound for South Carolina. But in 1808, this was 1813, in 1808, a law was passed by Congress forbidding more importations of the Songhai people. We're the Songhai people.
Right.
See, Blumenbach said, don't allow them to even learn that
That's
they
right.
came from the Songhai
That's
Empire.
right. We're going to try to breed them here on this continent
That's
rather
right.
than
That's
continuing
right.
the cultural memory.
They don't even let them learn the name Songhai. Because then they'll start investigating. Then take away their ability to read and write, pass laws against them learning to read and write. Then they can't learn anything about the Songhai Empire. They passed a law, 200 years of law not allowing blacks to learn to read and write. Well, anyhow, in 1808, this law was passed forbidding any more importations of Shanghai people. Now, nobody paid any attention to that law at all except one little group called abolitionists. Now, the abolitionists put their money together and they bought a ship. And they patrolled the seas looking for prisoner of war ships, which you all were trained to say slave ships. They weren't slave ships, they were prisoner of war ships.
Very
Will
important.
come in, very important distinction.
That's right.
And when we teach our children, they were never slaves.
That's
they
right.
were children, descendants of prisoners of war. Like McLean. He
That's
was a
right.
prisoner of war.
That's right.
He wasn't a slave.
That's right.
He got captured by the enemy.
That's right.
On the way, this abolitionist ship captured the ship that my great-great-grandmother was on. So instead of this baby being taken from my arms in South Carolina, the ship was towed to Trenton, New Jersey. And of course, Nzinga, who was the baby's mother, my great-great-great-grandmother, taught the baby that her father was a world-class sculptor, that her father was a lawyer, that he went to world-class universities. So I was trained from babyhood, you know, that we've got to right this wrong.
That's right. That's right.
So I was, it's your job, because you were spared by just an act of God, an act of the ancestors, to not let the baby being taken from Nzinga's arms. And the baby grew up, and she had a child. Her name is Mary Diane Thomas, and she was my great-grandmother, and she helped raise me.
Wow.
And so she told me the story when I was a kid, you see. So that's how I know
Wow.
where we're from.
Wow.
That's right.
People are upset about some things, darling.
Why are they yelling?
They want attention. They're trying to get attention so that people will listen to them.
This is our way of trying to get some media attention because they are ignoring us, they're ignoring the anti-war movement, they're ignoring the anti-government movement. We love our country, but we cannot trust our government anymore.